always start at the top of the tank when you're cleaning and work your way down to the bottom, because it's the bottom is where you're most likely going to pick up a granule of gravel, which in turn could scratch the tank. Now we can start working on the gravel line. So I'm going to rake that gravel back away from the front to expose the algae that's growing at the gravel line. Notice how I'm trying to get the gravel or keep the gravel from entering into the filter pad on the end of the handle. Now the filter system consists of a wet-dry trickle filter, you can see there with the bio balls, protein skimmer, and it's driven at this time by a submersible pump. We have had a few other pumps in the past, and not that they've failed, but they did influence the water temperature so much that it became a problem in the tank, so we ended up having to go back to a submersible pump. The system shut down right now so we can do the water change. And speaking of the water change, it's time to vacuum the gravel. Now the reason for vacuuming the gravel is just like you would vacuum the carpet at home. You're trying to get the dust, the debris, in this case, algae, uneaten fish food that has been eaten, fish poop, all those things you want to try to physically suck out of the tank, but not take the gravel with you. In some cases, there are deep tanks which require a big tall siphon, and there are shallower tanks that require a shorter version. This being a big tank, I think we'll try the big one. There's the vacuum attachment, and there's the siphon hose. Slip this up into the tank. Quick suck on the siphon line, and the siphon is started. And as you can see, we're pulling the gravel up, and we control the flow with my hand here. And by pulling the gravel up, we can extract the debris from the gravel.
And aside from the obvious piles of debris that require being sucked out, what you want to do is envision a checkerboard. And your goal is to suck the gravel out of all the black squares. By doing it in this manner, you can effectively clean 50% of the gravel bed, and yet, biologically, not over-clean the gravel bed.
And we're going to go ahead and siphon a little of the water into the bucket with the new fish. Once again, allowing them to get used to any variations in water quality. And you can get an idea as to how effective. I mean, this is the bucket that the fish are acclimating in, which is just straight water that I took from the tank. This bucket and this bucket is the water that I've taken the vacuumed water from the tank. So you can see it does a very effective job at removing debris from the tank. In addition to vacuuming the gravel, I want to try to suck some of that hair algae off the rocks themselves.
Hair algae to some may look cute flowing in the current, but it quickly becomes a problem, enveloping not only the decorations but living corals. So to a certain degree, it's the frustration of many hobbyists. Before we start putting new salt water back into the tank, we want to take a few moments and test current water quality. More specifically, pH and salinity.
That should be kind of more of a purple, and I would have to say that realistically is more of a red. So as opposed to an 8.0 to an 8.2 pH, my guess, and I'll double check it with the scale in a moment, that's probably an 7.8, a little on the low side. So we're going to add some buffer to this tank. 1.019, which is perfect, just a hair under the range.
I prefer to run the salinity on the low side. I feel it helps me deal better with parasites and evaporation.
As I've mentioned before, pH in aquarium is an issue. Keeping the pH up is the greater issue. And what we're using is a pH buffer to help support that pH. So we're going to put this in before we put the water in. And as you can see, it's a comfortable 77.5 degrees in the tank. This tank typically has a temperature problem, partly because when we initially set it up, the pumps themselves influenced the water temperature. We've since taken those pumps off and have kind of discovered that the pumps only maintain the temperature. This particular house in this particular neighborhood is just an extremely warm neighborhood. And the house in the summertime is warm, 80 plus itself, and the tank does not have a refrigeration unit on there. So come summertime, this tank becomes quite warm, and we'll have to seriously consider a refrigeration unit this year. Part of the filter system is a filter pad that traps particles, and that's located right here on top of the wet-dry trickle filter. The water coming from the overflow comes down through the drain line into the top of the wet-dry trickle filter. We have a filter pad there now. We want to put another one in its place to help trap particles. And you can see by how dirty this filter pad is how good a job it's doing and how important it is that it be there. So we've started acclimating our fish, which was the first thing. We've cleaned the top of the tank, we've cleaned the inside of the tank, we've cleaned the back side of the tank. Obviously we got those dirty corals out of the tank, and we've vacuumed the gravel. So at this point, it's now time to reintroduce the water and to reintroduce the coral decorations.
And we'll introduce that new salt water in our next episode.